getting back into this chapter and looking at some of the variances we got expounded upon. I had some emails from people that they really would like to understand. I'm hoping this first part dealing with materials, because this is saying exactly what I said in the prior chapter when we were doing material variances. This was what we did in the previous chapter. Again, DADS, difference times actual, actual quantity, difference in price times actual quantity, and difference in quantity times standard price to get your efficiency variance. And we could come up with a total materials variance. But this was assuming all that we purchased was put into production. That does, there's no change beginning and ending inventory. That's not realistic. Most of the time, it's going to be a little bit more like this. And it really doesn't make any sense to get a total materials variance. Again, the price variance is generally taken at the point of purchase, which is generally the responsibility of your purchasing department. Again, you still calculate the same way. The difference in price, the actual price of standard price, times the quantity purchased. And again, notice here, if you're doing a DADS system, difference in price times actual amount purchased, you really don't have to worry about that, actual quantity times standard price in the middle ground there, the middle prong. But again, here, the difference in price was 5 cents times the actual 350,000 pounds times 5 cent difference will give you that 17,500. Unfavorable variance since the actual price was 60 cents a pound and our standard was 55 cents a pound. It's just a shirt.
I know, it's not the shirt.
It's just a shirt.
Everything has went really bad today, just not the shirt. I just had a really bad day.
Did anybody kill your dog?
No, but my dog is sick. He really is. My mom had taken him to the vet this morning, so.
Forget I brought it up.
He's not dead though yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well. Sorry I brought it up. Okay. Your material efficiency variance here is obviously the amount put into production. And the actual quantity and the standard quantity take the difference times the standard price. And again here, notice the pounds used was 328. According to our standard, it should have been 320. We used 8,000 pounds more for whatever reason, times the standard price of 55 cents a pound. We're going to come up with that 4,400 material efficiency variance unfavorable. Now, the thing about it is, guys, when we go in and we record these, when we purchase materials, again, just thinking back, way back to 282, when we purchase materials, we debit materials, we credit accounts payable, right? Okay, in a standard costing system, we're going to debit materials for the standard price. So it would be the number of pounds, actual quantity, times the standard price. And that's where you're going to get that 192,500. 355,000 pounds times 55 cents. You credit accounts payable for the actual purchase price. Why? That creditor could care less about your standard costing system. All they know is, hey, I'm selling you 350,000 pounds at 60 cents a pound. And so you got to credit accounts payable for the 210,000. The difference is that it's going to be that materials price variance. It's unfavorable, so it's going to be a debit, or excuse me, credit. Debit. And so we debit it for, I got to do my head, unfavorable, so that has to be debit. Material price variance, 17,500. Now, when we place it in production, again here, you're going to actually debit the 176,000 to finished goods, or excuse me, place of production, work in process, I had to get my place here. Okay, but work in process, we're going to credit materials for the 18700, we debit the efficiency, material efficiency variance for 44A. Again, generally you debit the account you're going into at standard price, you credit the account you're coming out of at the actual price. Use your variances between the two, will even it up. Okay? General rule of thumb to remember. But again, notice with materials, a lot of times it is two separate entries. Whereas with labor is always going to be, you can do the one entry and record both variances at the same time because you can't store labor. It's either use it or lose it. But materials we can store. Okay? No problem there. Now, market share variance and that. Basically, what we're looking at here, looking at our sales activity there, most companies will have an initial, as it says in your notes that I gave you, that initial sales forecast, and we can break that down into why the actual sales activity differs from the budgeted sales activity. Part of it may be simply from just an industry volume variance, in the sense that the industry as a whole didn't sell as much as we thought. You know, auto industry, they may have had sold fewer cars as a whole as they thought the industry would, or they may have sold more. Again, it can be positive too. But again, it's the sales volume. Why is it just because the industry as a whole? Why did it differ than what was expected? The market share variance is your portion of the sales activity of that total market. You know, our percentage of sales of the industry varied from what we had anticipated, and again would be a difference. Now, I can't remember if you put that. Yeah. Market share variance, as it says there, you know, the difference between the budget and sales volume and the actual there. The thing about it is, industrial volume is simply going to be your standard Now, industry volume variance is simply your standard contribution margin per unit times the actual industry minus the budgeted industry times the budgeted market share. And again, this is industry volume variance. Now your market share variance again, you start with that standard contribution margin per unit times the actual industry volume times the actual market share minus your budgeted market share. So notice that we're using elements of both in both formulas. Okay? Now, that makes sense. Try to write these things on paper. Now, let's look at coming up with some of these, some numbers. Couple exercises. 15 and 16 we can look at, and sort of working backwards on these. Now, first one there, exercise 15, we got K's Autos. And they budgeted sales of 50,000 units. Product B, assuming that the company would have 20% of 250,000 units sold in a particular market. The actual results were 45,000 units based on a 15% share of the total market of 300,000 units. The budgeted contribution margin is $4 per unit, so we're giving us a contribution margin already. The thing about it is, you know, if we start looking at this, the industrial volume there, right off the bat, would it be favorable or unfavorable here? You know, no calculations. Let's just look at it and get a gut reaction. Huh? Why?
Because they budgeted 50,000 and only had 45,000.
No. Actually, it's going to be favorable. You say, why? Well, guys, the industry was supposed to sell 250,000 units, right? What did they actually sell? 300,000. So, yeah. So we would assume that this industry volume would be favorable because it went up. And it's sort of like the idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we're sort of saying here, right? Does that make sense? Now, the market share variance, right off the bat, same reasoning, we could say is probably going to be unfavorable. Why?
Because it says they only get 15%.
Right, we budgeted 20, but we only had 15. So that ain't good. Right? Does that make sense? How you look at these and start getting a feel of what we're going to need? Now, you know, basically, if we look at it in a flexible budget, I mean, you can do it with the problems if you want, but let's just think about it here. You've got your flexible budget. How much is in that flexible budget? Well, you say, what are we talking about here? Well, we know that our contribution margin is $4 a unit, right? And how many units did we have? Actual? So I would get 180. 45,000 times the $4, right? Everybody okay with that? On the other end, we got our master budget. And over here, we said that according to the master budget, we should have 20% of 250,000 units, right? That would be 50,000 units to me, correct? So that would be how much? $200,000. 50,000 times $4, right? Now we want to know what would be the, if we take our percentage, our budgeted market share times the actual industry volume. We should have had 20% of 300,000, right? And I do believe that's what, 60? And so 60,000 units times $4, 240. And that's the standard contribution margin at budgeted market share at actual volume, actual industry volume. Okay. Now, again, this is just doing the prongs. Here, that's a 60,000 difference, right? Number to the right's more. We always said if number to the right is more, it was favorable or unfavorable. Over here, 40,000 favorable. Now overall, $20,000 unfavorable. That's one way to do it. Now, let's go back to our formulas. Remember these? Now, if we're doing industrial volume variance, you know, which we know is 40,000 favorable right off the bat. Again, you say, how are we getting that? Well, we said we take our standard contribution margin was $4, right? And we're going to take that times the actual industry, which was 300,000. Minus the budgeted, which was 250, times our budgeted market share, which is what? 20%. Does that come out right? So we got 4 times 50,000 times 0.2, is that 40,000? And since actual is greater than budgeted, that's favorable, right? On the other one, we said that for the market share, we're going to take the contribution margin, $4, our standard contribution margin. Actual industry volume, we said was what, 300,000? Times our actual market share, which was what, 15%, minus the budgeted market share of 20%. Does that come out correct? 60,000 unfavorable? So, any way you want to do it like that, again, just like with the other variances, you can do the prongs or you can do the formulas. Everybody kosher with that? Now, another way of looking at this now, look
I got a
at,
question.
yes ma'am.
If it's like in the formulas, if it's a positive result, does that always mean it's favorable? Like where the, like on the second formula where 0.15 minus 0.2 is negative 0.05,
Right.
it's going to make your answer negative. So is that always going to be
That,
available?
well,
Or is that
again,
not?
you got to think logically. If your market share shrinks, then obviously your market share variance would be unfavorable, right? We thought it was going to be 20, and it's only 15. That's not favorable. So again, you can use a little bit of common sense thought, but you're right, it would be.
Okay, so
It depends on how you list. I mean,
that's
you
an
know.
assumption I can make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But again, just think logically. If your market share is shrinking, that's not what you want. You would want your actual market share to be greater than what you budgeted. Again, it's like with most variances. If you'll stop and think, it's like I was just telling the 282 students, you know, we're talking about cost variances, and they said, well, what about revenue? I said, well, the rules are changed. And again, you know, what I've told y'all before, when you stop and think about it, if you budget $5 to go to the movie tonight, so yeah, talk about your world crumbling. I got in trouble last week for that. I went to the movie, didn't take my wife. She got mad. And because I didn't take it. But I said, well, honey, you weren't here. And it was going off the theater, and I wanted to see it. I waited till the very last day. No one saw it. I wanted to see the odds. When we were talking with some friends Friday night, and I made a statement, well, I saw odds this week. You should have seen the look I got. I'd be dead now if it was possible. And afterwards, you went and saw the movie without me? Yeah. You weren't here. Anyway, but you budget $5 to go see a theater, to see the movie, right? And you go there and it's $9. Well, actual and what you budgeted are different, right? Well, do you like that? Well, no, you paid more. On the other hand, if you budget $5 and you go in a special night, your $3 movie night, well, you budgeted $5, but you only paid $3. Well, you're going to like that. Well, same thing with like when it's a revenue variance. If I'm going to go work this job and I think, well, I'm going to make $10 an hour, and they go, oh, by the way, we're paying $15 an hour. You're going to go, well, hey, hello, I like this. On the other hand, you think it's paying $10 an hour, and they come down, oh, no, we only pay $8 an hour. You probably wouldn't like that. That's unfair. So again, always use common sense as to what is the firm going to be better off. On revenue variances, the more the better. When actual's greater than any standard. On the other hand, when we're talking about costs and all that, then it's the other way around. It's when actual's lower than standard. Well, again, talking about market share, we would want our market share to be more than budgeted. That's favorable. If it's less, that's unfavorable. And again, like I said, with the industry volume variance, the more if the industry grows, that's good, beneficial. Because the idea being that a rising tide lifts all boats. So again, say all of a sudden there's been a pent-up demand for cars, and all of a sudden we think as an industry they're only going to sell 6 million. All of a sudden people are going left and right buying cars and they sell 7.5 million. Well, as an auto manufacturer, we would expect that we would sell more cars because the industry as a whole grew by 1.5 million. Doesn't necessarily mean we will, but we would assume that the industry volume variance would be favorable, right? Because we would expect to sell more. By the way, it's just actually speaking of this, I was reading interesting stories about after World War II. They were talking about a little bit about this, about the volume of industry. We actually went through a period where we decreased government spending by more than 80%. Because obviously World War II was over and we didn't need bullets and tanks and airplanes and all that. So all these industry contracts were being eliminated and people were coming out of the military. Obviously the factories weren't going to be making these, so they weren't needing as many workers. And we had an oddity. All the economists said we were in for a major recession. And paradoxically, after every major war, there has been a recession because all of a sudden you don't have all these government jobs and government money. But we didn't have a recession after World War II. And we actually increased private production almost. It grew like threefold from 46 to 48. It's one of the most amazing stories ever. I mean, it really set the standard for the next generation. Interesting reading about what the economists were saying and what actually happened. And we broke every mold, basically, that they had put us in. And a great study, if you ever want to study one of the biggest winners of that period was Sears Roebuck. It's a classical marketing study if you ever get bored and want to look up something. But do you know who the #1 catalog company in sales clothing thing was before World War II? Montgomery Ward. They dwarfed Sears. The 1950s Sears made Montgomery Ward the stepchild. And basically was because the old man at Montgomery Ward said there's always going to be a recession after war, and he held back. Sears looked at it and said, people are going to be spending like crazy, let's expand. And if you know now, Montgomery Ward never did catch back up. They totally got blown out of the water. So, interesting study. Like I say, reading on that.
Did you know that? You used to be able to buy houses from the Sears catalog?
Yeah, they had all kinds of things.
I mean, we can find Sears. So, just saying. We have one around town. And they told me that, and I was like,
Used to be able to order brides too. Huh? Well, some say you still can from Russia or whatever, but you know. Well, what do you do if you get one that's broken? You know, you get it and it comes broken. You know, how do you send it back? I mean, you know, it's got the wrong printing on it, and you got to send the bride back. And, you know, how do you do that? She ain't paying a good attention. Okay. Hey, you never heard of mail order brides? Okay.
I didn't know Sears sold them.
I don't know if Sears sold them or not, but actually it was mainly out west. You know, when you were willing to go be married. So, hey. Huh?
I'm pretty sure I got a guy in the town who has mail order bride from Russia. Was right down the street from me. I'm just saying. She's real nice.
Well, good for her. I think I lost control about 10 minutes ago, but I'm not sure. But, you know, hey, okay. Hey, you people are the ones that still, I don't understand all this internet stuff. But I know several people who met people online and went on and married. Like, to me, it's a little scary.
A little bit.
Huh?
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always said I made that mistake once. I learned from mistakes. I'll never marry again. Huh? That's right. Yeah. Be 34 years in June. She's getting, of course, like I say, we were talking the other day, me and a friend, they're going to be married 34 years in June too. And I said, you know, I can remember back to the time when I thought just being 34 years old was ancient. Much less being married 34 years. So your perspective does change, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's look at 16, and you know, they're saying if you look back at Exhibit 14.7, which is on page 633, if you're wanting to see how they're coming up with this. And it's coming up and filling in some actual numbers. Again, you're starting to work a little bit backwards with these formulas. And since we do have a tendency to have struggle with things like this, let's, it says find the missing amounts. Actual minus budgeted sales volume. I'm looking at exercise 17.6. It refers back to Exhibit 17.4. And it says the actual sales volume for the firm is below its budgeted sales volume. So it says, what's the actual minus the budgeted sales volume? This is an easy one. Can anybody tell me? It's even easier than that, guys.
37,500.
Nope.
52,500.
Nope.
1,050,000. 12,500.
Yeah.
I've added and subtracted every number I see.
No. No, you haven't.
Well, I'm at
Actual minus budgeted sales volume. Well, guys, simply put, we know on market share there was 52,500 fewer units, but on the industrial volume, we sold 37,500 more units. So the actual minus budgeted would be 15,000. You say, how you get that? 52,500 minus 37,500. There's fewer, 15,000 fewer. You got a reduction of 52,500 and an increase of 37,500. So no wrong reduction of 15. That's A. So again, this is 1760. Okay. What's the budgeted industry volume? How would we find that? Huh? There's an answer there where?
Exhibit 17.4.
No. This says it's similar to the exhibit 17.4.
Oh,
It's similar to it. Huh?
Is it 900,000?
How'd you get that? That's right.
Algebra.
Huh?
Just algebra.
Exactly. It's simple algebra, guys. The formula they're giving you on the top, it says what? 1,050,000 minus B times 25% equals 37.5. Solve for B. B's got to be 900,000. Simple algebra. Basically, if you took the 37.5, multiply it by 4, you get 150,000. So it's got to be 150,000 fewer than 1,050,000, right? Working backwards. C, the budgeted market share percentage.
29%.
How'd you get that?
It is given.
That is given. You're right. If you look from the industrial volume line, you get 25%. Okay, which is C. That's it. C is easy. 25%. That's given. Well, then what is the actual market share?
Is it 5%?
Hmm?
5%.
Mhm. Huh?
30%.
It's 20%. We went the wrong direction. Guys, we're just using these formulas here. The only difference is we don't have the standard contribution margin. In other words, on the market share formula, you got this right here. You're ignoring this to get the dollar amount. We know the actual industry volume is 1,050,000. How do we know that? Well, if you look up above, again, on that industry volume, we know the actual industry was given to you as 1,050,000. So on D, all you're doing, you're saying, you know, again, D minus 25% because that was given times 1,050,000 equals 52,500. Since it's fewer, we know that D has got to be less than 25,000. Okay. Actual industry volume? Yeah, 1,050,000 because it's given. E has to be the 1,050,000 because that's what we said it was. Again, it's just you going back and just ignoring the standard contribution margin. You're just using those formulas there. Plug in the missing numbers. Basic algebra as one stated. Everybody okay with that? Everybody says piece of cake. Easy, right? Huh? Oh, don't want to do that far. Well, but is your life in shambles?
Yes.
Yes.
We know that it is for a couple of people here, right? And so, man. Yeah. Just think, there'll actually be days that you'll look back at this and say, and laugh at it and say, I wish my problems were that simple now.
Probably.
Huh? Yeah, wait till you have kids and all that. You're trying to potty train them and all that. And you'll think, shirts, what a piece of cake. Okay. That's a trial we're going through. Okay, now, let us move on. Again, sales mix variances are going to, we're going to divide it into a sales mix and a sales quantity. Again, the sales mix variance, it says it rises there from the different relative proportion of different products sold. We have a different mix than what we thought. And again, sales mix variance. Sales mix variance. Simply put, again, standard contribution margin per unit times the actual quantity sold minus the quantity that would be sold in standard mix. And again, this is when, obviously, when the company has multiple products, and when these products are not perfect substitutes for each other.
What's that say?
Quantity sold at standard mix. Okay, and the sales mix actually just measures the impact of substitution. Now, The sales quantity variance, again, what we're looking at there is when a company has multiple products and it's a change in volume of sales independent of any sales mix change. And your standard contribution margin per unit, again, times the quantity sold at standard mix minus the budgeted sales quantity. Now again, what it's doing is measuring the variance in the quantity, holding the sales mix constant. And you can do these variances for each product sold. Just to look at the exact source of each one, but in practice, you generally do it on the mix as a whole. Most companies don't go into each individual product. They could if they wanted. They could. I mean, it's theoretically possible. Now, with that in mind, you can pop up some numbers. Look at exercise 18. And again, hopefully this has helped some of the questions people email me. Okay. Now, let's see what we got here. We got AAA Electronics sells 2 models of electronic organizers. Budgeted price per unit for the regular model is $109.50. Budgeted price for wireless model is $249.50. Master budget calls for sales of $20,000 and $9,000 respectively. Actual results, we had $15,000 regular at a price of $112.90 and $10,000 wireless at a price of $253.90. Standard variable cost is $50 regular model, $100 for the wireless model. Compute the activity variance for this data. Well, how are we going to do that? Any ideas? Okay. Well, how we come up, what's the activity variance here? Well, difference is going to be between the master budget and the flexible budget is going to be your activity variance, right? So on the master budget, what would be the total there? How would we get it? Anybody know?
Is it a very large number?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Does it start with 4?
No.
Okay, then I got it.
Does it start with A1?
Huh?
Then I got it.
No. Huh?
Does it start with A1?
No. It does start with a 2. Now, question is, we want contribution margin, right? Per unit. What is, we got 2 models here. What is it for the regular? What's the contribution margin for the regular that we need to use? $59.50. Because it says it has a budgeted or price there of $109.50, and it tells us that the standard variable cost is $50. So the contribution margin would be $59.50, right? How many units are we budgeted? Huh?
20,000.
20,000. So we would want to take 20,000 times $59.50. And to that, what do we want to add? So what would be the numbers in that little parenthesis there?
149.50 times 9,000.
And so if we do all that, what do we get?
2,535,500.
That is correct. Now, why did we use the budgeted price? Why didn't we use actual?
Because you said we were going to master budget.
And here's a real tip to this exercise here, exercise 18. Ignore the actual prices. We don't need them. We're doing this because the mix and quantity variances are based on standard budgeted contribution margin per unit. So that 253.90 and that 112.90, that's irrelevant information. Doesn't matter. Now we got to come up with our flexible budget. Flexible budget. We're going over here. We're going to have what on the regular model?
15,000
times what? Plus
10,000.
and that gives us
2,387,000.
so our activity variance is what? 107,000. What's the difference in those two? 148,000 unfavorable. Now we got to break that down into a sales mix and quantity variance. That's what we're going to do. We're going to break this down. Now, what we can do, and rather complicated, but I guess probably about the only way here, we're going to take 25,000 times 20,000 divided by 29,000 times the 59.50. And to that, we're going to add 25,000 times 9,000 divided by 29 times 149.50. I guess I put the contribution margin on the wrong end. What we said.
It's
15 and 10 was 25,000 actually sold. The standard mix for the regular was 20 over out of 29,000 total units, and for the wireless it was 9,000 out of 29,000 units. Okay? And what number do we get when we do all that, add that all up?
keep that in here.
2,185,776.
Okay. Guess what then? Our mixed variance is going to be the difference between these two numbers. The mixed variance, if I can write it up here, the mixed variance will be, what is 2,387,500 minus 2,185,776? The difference in these two numbers.
201,724.
201,724. Favorable or unfavorable? Favorable. Number to the left is higher. Now, the quantity variance is going to be the difference here between this number and this. And so 2,535,500 minus 2,185,776.
349,724. Favorable.
Unfavorable.
That's
Number to the right is more.
I meant unfavorable.
I know that's what you meant. Because we basically said that the activity variance was 148,000 unfavorable. So this plus this has to be equal to 148. Okay? Don't you just love doing all these variances like this? No, you know, it's not your favorite?